I am Afif, the General Vice Chair of 5G-ACIA. I work at Ericsson as Director of Industry Engagement and Research. I'm based in Stockholm, Sweden. In my today talk, I'll divide it into 4 parts. First, I will dwell into what 5G-ACIA have achieved and maybe give you, for some of you that are not very familiar with the Alliance, will make a short description what we are doing and the objectives. Then the second part, I think this is the exciting part. Where are we in terms of industrial 5G today? In terms of the commercial deployments, in terms, of spectrum landscape. Then I picked 2 components which are crucial for the industrial 5G ecosystem, devices and edge clouds. And I'll talk about them. This kind of work has been achieved in 5G-ACIA. And finally, I will conclude, and I think this would be interesting. Where are we heading in terms of industrial 5G journey? So now let's jump on into the first part and looking back the last couple of years to see what 5G-ACIA has achieved so far. And maybe I'll say it, being humble, of course. I mean, we are a global alliance. I think we are making impact, noticeable impact to reckon with. And maybe this is achievements, I mean, of the whole industrial 5G system, or the majority, I would say. As you know, we started 5 years ago, 2018. And at the beginning of this journey, where a special industrial player were asking, what is it for us 5G? And they said, oh, by the way, these are the important use cases that we'd like to support. And this is how it happened. So several players in 5G-ACIA took these use cases, fed it to the 3GPP standard, and where it was discussed, what are the requirements of these use cases and how it can be supported. And now we can claim, of course, some of the features in the standard and the 5G standard releases, like starting from release 15, 16s, where several features were created to support these requirements in terms of dependency, latency, reliability. So was the start, and then and immediately after, we have looked, about the deployment models. And some of you may recall, I mean, we were the first one to say, look, if you need a local deployment, how can you do it? Do you need a public network or not? What kind of functionality should be in your local deployment? What are the functions that you can basically have it outside? Another achievement, what we have looked as well at some of the technology integration into 5G and how those can be integrated. Starting with Profinet, and then I would say new between quotes, I mean technology, especially these are used and will be used for wired, and then we are seeing now basically being discussed, and as well we expect to be used for wireless by time sensitive networking, TSN, layer 2, and even on higher layers, where it will allow you, it will help you to make your network more deterministic to support, the important use cases in the industrial 5G settings. And then lately on deterministic network, this is on layer 3. And not to forget OPCOA. Another aspect which is mentioned, top bottom left, this is on the IT integration, and this is also one of the challenge. How do you integrate, your private network into an IT settings in the enterprise IT? And where we have looked into exposure capabilities, functions, and in a couple of years we had a paper on the exposures, and as well this has impacted what's happening in the 3GPP standard. And then finally, 2 aspects not to be neglected, and I'm here, I would say, maybe in I'm here today where I'm trying to create awareness that this, this education box uh, all around the world, that we need to work all together and to share the latest that we have done, and how we can, how this journey will be successful, or to make this journey successful. And we need, of course, to collaborate. We have been collaborating. I think the 5G Forum has one of the first forum that we have collaborated with, and we signed MOU, and we are really very happy, and we look forward even for more a solid collaboration. Now, it's not only, about, I would say, theoretical aspects, technologies, and, white papers. We are also have done in 5G ACIA more hands-on, more demos, uh, more real, close basically to real deployment, to show that 5G, industrial 5G can support, those use cases. And we had a program where we endorsed, test beds from our members, where the majority of those, of course, participants should come from 5G ACIA. You might have seen it before, and there are also a few webinars about it on our website if you'd like to know more. Starting already in 2021, where we had, the majority of I would say the test bed currently are all of them in Europe, where we had them in Germany, for example. Here, most of the example here in Germany, starting with 5G Smart test bed in semiconductor factory, Bosch factory, where we have deployed, Ericsson has deployed a 5G network to test some of the use cases. And then also another deployment, but this is not only indoor. Basically, this is only a campus in Aachen, where we have tested several use cases, including, one of the first one maybe called the Blix. It's airplane engines, or and other use cases. Then it's not only, different settings. We have also, tested 5G Open RAN, for example, to check the positioning, how far can we go in terms of positioning. Other use cases, there are, of course, I haven't mentioned, but AGVs also running around. This is what you find usually many in factories. A crane, for example, the 5G evaluation for material handling, you can see it on the bottom left. And also, Profinet. And lately, as a matter of fact, we had the latest plenary in Japan in May, where one testbed was endorsed. This is was by several players, Fraunhofer, IPT, Ericsson, and others, where for the first time we are looking into millimeter wave. So this is in a nutshell, where, overview of the achievement. Now let's look very briefly into 5G ACIA, structure. Maybe for those of you, as a reminder, I just mentioned we were founded in 2018 with the objective to make sure that both, the OT and IT would come together, build a common language, and try to pave the way for, industrial 5G ecosystem. Our structure changed, adapted over the time. This is two years old structure. We had it was different at the setting of the alliance. As you can see, this is reflected in 5 working groups, and one of it industrial 5G in practice, where those endorsed testbed basically are connected to. We meet a few times a year. The next basically meeting is in 1 month's time. It will be in Taipei. So you are really invited, to join us there. It will be not only a plenary and also industrial, day, and many exciting external as well presentations. Where are we in terms of members? We are constantly growing. We are more than 100 members. This figure is from October 2023. And I can say maybe now we are more on a stable level. And of course, we do have as well Korean players, and we would like, of course, to ask our Korean colleagues here to be more involved into joint 5G ACIA, because we would like really for industrial 5G to happen worldwide. Well, this is not so brief as I promised, about what 5G ACIA has achieved. Now let me move on and to tell you where are we in terms of industrial 5G. And usually, I pick a few indicators, and for this time, I did pick 8 of them, which will help us, basically to understand where are we today. The first one is about live network deployments, 5G. I think, but more importantly, is the standalone, because for industrial 5G use cases, the standalone will support more use cases, especially when it comes, to lower latency and higher reliability. Some numbers not necessarily important for industrial 5G, but more, 5G as a whole. Coverage is expanding. More and more, populated area are being covered. The average traffic is on the increase. Korea, of course, was of the first country to have not only coverage but high data rate already from 2019, and so the average now globally, which I think is impressive, is has surpassed basically 20 gigabyte per. This is basically per subscriber. Now on the bottom there are also important indicators, like in terms of private networks. And if you look at the latest GSA, more than 1,000 deployments, a bulk portion, I would say, on manufacturing. The forecast for the years to come, this value will increase to be on the tens of thousands. And I haven't so far seen a newer update of the forecast, but of course we should all be cautious. Nonetheless, what we have noticed, if you look 2021, 2022, and 2023, it has been incredible. It has been a substantial increase in terms of private network deployments. And these figures does not includes commercial and pre-commercial as well. Finally, another indicators is the IoT connections. In the past, we have tendency to neglect it and more focus on on the latency and reliability. But you have all type of devices, and that's why I think it's very important to keep track of the IoT connections. And there are more and more cellular supported IoT connections, and the portion of cellular is on the increase. And we have, of course, you might have noticed the latest deployment or announcement about reduced capabilities, and this is also an important aspect of the industrial 5G ecosystem. Another second important aspect is spectrum. So let's spend maybe a couple of minutes here on the spectrum. Where are we? And here I've selected only the high bands because there are more on the mid bands. The conclusion, what I would like, the takeaway from this figure, there are more and more countries supported dedicated network for or spectrum for industries, either directly dedicated or via MNOs. It depends on the countries, and not only in min band, also on high bands, on where the latest development, you can see in many countries. And for example, the latest to have dedicated network, dedicated spectrum is Canada. And of course, for example, Korea, you had it one of the first countries after Germany and the UK. We have it in Japan and elsewhere. In some countries, you have to go through the MNO, but the MNO are obliged basically to allocate this spectrum to the industries in case there are needs. For example, the Czech Republic, Denmark, as well, Finland do have the most basically spectrum allocated, and as well, you can go via minimum. Okay, fantastic. Let's move on now to the third part. I'll give, as I said, two examples, two components, which I think they are important for the industrial 5G ecosystem. And the first one that I will start with is the devices. I don't know if some of you did visit the Hanover Fair earlier this year in April in Germany. Some of the pictures I have taken myself, where you can see there are not only prototypes, uh, there are really not only prototypes, but you can find basically also commercial products. But the majority, we have to say, they have been ready, but more prototypes. And in 5G ACIA, we have spent some time classifying these devices, and as you can see, we divided them into 8 categories. For example, gateways for sensors, as you can see, this is from Weidmuller. Then it could be input-output devices from IFM, again from Hanover. On the bottom, for example, router from Phoenix Contacts. Uh, Also, I mean, other members, like for example, Siemens, they also do have commercial industrial 5G devices. Now let me move on to the second example, which also a pillar in terms of we need to neglect it. It's basically about the cloud and storage. Where do you store your information? I mean, how what are the criteria that you pick to store your information? And of course, at the end, it depends not only on the deployment, but of the use cases you would like to support. And I took one example here is mobile robots. What we did in 5G ACIA, we took the use cases and we divided into 3 categories in terms of, of the requirements that are more stringent. For example, the use cases where really you should be the cloud system should be on-prem, otherwise you will not be able to support. Other cases you are more slightly more diligent. If you can allow it in multiple what we call OT productions, like for example multiple buildings or multiple close by sites. And then on the other extreme, it could be completely central. If we take a look about the mobile robots, as you can see here, the green one are those functionality not so stringent in terms of latency. For example, if you wish, I mean, you have the wish to deploy it, the mobile robots, AGVs, moving in the same, for example, building shop floor, uh, you need some of the functions need to be really on-prem to support the latency, whatever the RAN, the user plane, the servo, the trajectory planning. Others you are more diligent. I mean, they don't have necessarily, I mean, to be on-prem, like the control plane or the exposure functions, and as well the fleet control. If you have multiple sites, now you move on to the second one, multiple sites. Um, as you can see, some of the functions are more tolerant, like fleet control exposure, but now the control plane is recommended to have it as well on the edge. On if you would like to move on to kind of central and outside, some of the functions can be duplicated as well. I mean, on centrally, like user plane, control plane, exposure, fleet. If you duplicate the user plane, but you should definitely have it as well, on the other settings. If you would like to know more, please go and read, our white paper that we have published, at the Hanover Fair. And there are more papers what we have done as well. And now I'm almost reached the end of my presentation. Let me spend 2 minutes to talk where are we heading about in the coming years to come. And before that, if we take a look about what we call the industrial 5G hype cycle, that you see it here. A few years back at Hanover, a lot of excitement. We were at the top. But then, the COVID come and other factors, and the expectation were completely incredibly down. And I would say, from 2022, since a couple of years, it's on the move up again, for several reasons, and these reasons are listed here. We have more adoption of 5G for addressing coverage. You can see it in many sectors: mining, ports, chemical plants, increasing availability of features. I mentioned, just before, the red cap features for devices. Then there are more as well devices uh, available. I gave you examples. There is significant activities of many leaders ongoing, especially in the area of car. For example, we have our members Volkswagen. They had their own deployments, and they were also presented their findings at Hanover, and aircraft manufacturing. There is momentum in several countries, including Korea. It is coming. It is coming. It has been taken more time, and it will take time. We have to be patient, and the journey we have to do it together. But more to come, and that's why I invite my friend here today in Seoul, in Korea, to join us more in force, because we need all the efforts to make it happen. And before I leave you, maybe I would remind you that we don't only, this is only a snapshot to what I have presented, what we have done in 5G-ACIA. Lately, we have been working on machine vision. This is an exciting topic. We are working internally on market tracking, and we'll do more. Open RAN as well, and many more. We have just released a white paper on SideLink. Several of these topics, you find them on our websites, as you can see here. It's a long list. Uh, and as well, as I said, please join us. The next plenary meeting is in Taipei in 1 month's time. Reach me directly, so I will put you in contact with the 5G ASIA office so they can extend to you an invitation to join us. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a nice day. Goodbye.